Kelly here with Kelly's Soroka Life, and today I have a review for you of the Magical Hours Tarot. So every month last year, I worked with four different magical items, and those were a crystal, an herb, a deck, and a book. And I am continuing that practice into this year. And so I'm calling it my 4x4 practice. And so each week of the month, I'll have a different video out about the items that I am using. So the first week will be the crystal, the second week, the herb. And now that we're in the third week, this is the tarot deck that I've been working with. And then the last week is the magical book that I have been reading. So I have been working with the Magical Hours Tarot, and this is by Cecelia Lattari and illustrated by Fabiana Belmonte. And this one, I got this sometime at the middle, probably first middle, sometime last year. And so it's been in the box on a bookshelf for a while. And so I knew that I wanted to pull it out because the box itself, and you can see the front, this is what's on the box, and it's just a beautiful deck. It's just really, really pretty. And it seemed like when I read the reviews about it that it had an interesting take on the Rider-Waite-Smith system deck. And so I wanted to check it out and use it. And I'm really glad that I did because I think it has, a couple of things that I don't really enjoy, but I'll tell you about those as we go along. So this deck is a US game system deck, and so it is on a US game system cardstock. And the cards are a little bit, they're, I think, 3x5, which are a little bit larger than regular tarot size cards, which I didn't really mind. Sometimes working with bigger decks, and just because I have small hands, and sometimes working with bigger decks is a little bit unwieldy, but this one seemed to really work out well. Now it is very, very glossy, and it does have this like bow in it, which is, and you can see, you can't, it's kind of hard to see on the camera, but there's a definite bow in the cardstock, and it's been like that since I got it. And since it came out of the box. And I think that working with it and just shuffling it, because it has gotten better as I have worked with it this month. But it is when you lay the cards down and you try to lay the cards down flat, they kind of spin around a little bit, which is a little bit annoying at times. But I think that working with it and just getting the cards broken in, then I will like it a lot better. But I do really enjoy working with the deck and working with the system and working with the images. So working with a little bit of glossy cardstock is okay. So that is really the only thing that was a little bit annoying about the deck. And all decks are different, and some, all cardstock is different, and some people really like the glossy and really like the oversized cards and really like that type of cardstock, and you might prefer something different. So just think about, if you are thinking about purchasing this one, look at the cardstock, know that it is glossy, and know that it is oversized a little bit, and know that it may have a little bit of bowing to it. So just keep that in mind if you are thinking about purchasing it. But working with it overall this month has been really, really fun. The guidebook is not too terribly involved. It has an introduction, and I think this is probably the most important part of this guidebook, because it does, like I said, have a very different take on the cards and a different take. It's got its own system. And so if you work with it, you'll see what the system is. And it's very plainly, the author very plainly talked about it, how the major arcana, how they work, and how the minor arcana, how all of they work. And I'll show you some examples with the cards. Now, I did like this one, this guidebook, because it does have the full color illustrations here, and it's got really good information about each card. And with each of the major cards, major arcana cards, at the bottom, because it goes with a certain time of the day, it has a suggestion for something for you today, for you to do that time of the day. So that's why it is called the Magical Hours Tarot, and that's kind of its claim to the story that it tells in the cards, because through the major arcana, it goes through a day. So you start at dawn on one day with the Fool, and then you end up at dawn the next day with the World. And so you go through each of these cards, and each of the cards, you can look at them and see where it is in that time of the day. And like I said, it has a place on it, on the on where it where you can see, just like this card. Let me get the High Priestess here. I pulled it. So if you look at the High Priestess, which is number 2 in the major arcana, so you see the High Priestess, and here's the card. So if you draw the High Priestess card, you can look in here and look at the time of day. So this is early morning, and they have 7 a.m. as the early morning. And what you can do with working with the High Priestess, in the initial hours after waking up, pinpoint your dreams. They will be a magic map. And so I really did like that. And I thought that it was really fun to go through the day and look at the major arcana cards as going through a day. And that was fun to do. Now, the other thing that this author also did with these cards is associate certain plants and flowers with each suit. So, and you can see that in, as you go through. So if you were to lay out all the major arcana cards, you could see the sun and going through the cards, and you could see when it became night and when the dawn came the next day. But also you could see the plants and flowers that grow and bloom specifically in that time of day. So, and I thought that was really fun and really interesting, because I love to work with plants. I love to work with herbs. And so working with those through the cards was really fun. And in the major arcana, you get the author tells you about those flowers and plants that bloom at those times of day. So if you like working with any of those, you can see the cards that you can work with those, which leads me into the suits. Now they do keep the author does keep the names of the suits from the same as the Rider-Waite-Smith system. So we have the wands, we have pentacles, we have cups, and we have swords. And they're all associated with the same element. So the wands is still fire, the pentacles is earth, the cups is water, and the swords are air. But this author has decided that in working with the hours and working with the plants and flowers that she's working with in these decks, that the wands are associated with dawn. And so things, and the sun coming up. So anything that flowers during those morning times, you can see those flowers with the wand suit. And then the pentacles are the day, is the suit of the day. And so it is the time like midday when things would be blooming in full sun. And so those are the plants associated with that suit. Then with cups, it's at twilight. So anything as the sun is going down, any plants or flowers that would bloom during that time, you'll see on the cups cards. And then at night is swords. And so anything that blooms at night, those nighttime, all of those plants and flowers that we associate with blooming in the night you can see them on those night cards. And I won't go into all of them, because if you're interested in them and you like plants and flowers, then you can go in and read them and see the ones which you like to work with. But I really liked that was part of it as well, going through the daytime, because when you do watch the cycles of nature and you watch Mother Nature and you see those cycles play out in a day, in a moon cycle, in a cycle, a season, then you definitely do see those things come around and how to make a connection with it. And I think that was definitely one of the things that I really enjoyed about working with this deck. So let me show you some of the cards here. So this is the Six of Cups. And you can see on my camera, it's very, very glossy. The Fool. The Six of Swords. And this is the Ten of Swords. The Ace of, Page of Swords. The Ten of Wands. The Ten of Pentacles. And you can see here this is the Four of Swords, and you can see that it's night and night blooming flowers, because the swords is associated with that time of day. So you can see how, and you can see the style. It definitely has a style. It's very enchanted. It's very ethereal. It's a digital collage. And I usually don't really work with a lot of collage decks, because they can get sometimes they are so busy that it's really hard to pick out the themes, or it just gets a little bit overwhelming. Now, other people really enjoy, really lots of symbols and lots of things in collage decks. But this one, I really liked it. It's very fantasy, but it has some reality mixed with it. And see this one, what is a much more fantasy-based card. But then other cards, this one is a little bit more realistic looking. So it's that mix of kind of the magical and reality that I liked in this collage. And the pictures are, very pretty and just so well done. Now, one of the things that I thought was really interesting, and I'll show you this. In each suit, you can see this is the Wands suit, and you can see this is the Nine of Wands, and you can see all of these wands here. But the wands, and it may be that it's because wands represents dawn, and it's a time where things are a little bit, just coming into view and just coming into color and just coming into light. And so you can see that the wands are very light. They're just drawn in like this, and they're all like this. And in all the wands, you can see this wands, the way that the wands are drawn, which was kind of, I liked it, but it wasn't consistent through the whole deck, because then you move into day. with the Pentacle suit, and this is the Seven of Pentacles. And you can see the pentacles there, and they're just the gold discs. And I think there is a little bit of writing on it. I don't think that it's a pentacle, but there is some writing on it. But all the pentacles pretty much look like this. And they look much more solid. And of course, again, it could correspond to that time of day when the sun is at its brightest and things are going to be more solid, and you can see things more easily. And then we move to the cups. And so again, all the wands were the same and drawn the same. All the pentacles were the same and drawn the same. But then in the cups, you have the cups, which is twilight, which I thought again would be a little bit more like the wands, and where the sun, the light is fading. And so the cups might be fading a little bit as well, but all the cups are like the pentacles. They're very realistic looking, and you can see, but they're all different. In every cups, all the cups are different, and there's different styles of cups. And this one, you see just some white teacups here. And other cards, they're different colors and different shapes. And so that again, could be the twilight as things are, moving into that time of day. Different days, the sunset can look, very different. And so, that might go along with that as well. And it's, cups again is the water suit. And so having something, that holds the water is going to be practical as well. But then the swords are kind of somewhere in between. And this is the Eight of Swords. And here you can see the swords, and the swords have that kind of drawn feeling like the wands do. So that they're a little bit more, drawn in, a little bit more filled in, but they all look pretty much the same. And they're all in this same kind of style. And so it was very interesting how the differences are. And I read the guidebook, and there's not a whole lot about it, and there's nothing specifically that explains it that I remember reading about. But I think that, just from my guesses, that might be my guesses, and how I kind of interpreted the artwork. So that was something that was really interesting about it. And so it took some getting used to. But once I got used to reading with it, and once I started using it in readings and putting, mixing up all the cards and having them come out together, it really showed the difference between the wands and it being that dawn and the time when the sun was coming up, to pentacles when it was daytime. Things were very bright and the sun is out, and twilight when it's sunset. And it's a very different feeling from the wands, and the swords, of course, at being at night, and having to look. And it may be too just practically because the swords are at night, and so the background is going to be dark, and so having those the swords show up like that as well. So that was just kind of my interpretation of the suits, and how it was really interesting to work together, and gave a really fun spin to the readings that I did, and gave some depth to it, and gave some depth to looking at where are you in this cycle. And so when I would have a question, if it was something that came, maybe a swords card came up and it was in one of the first positions, then it might be something that the situation was something that I wasn't expecting, or something that needed, some light, or something that I needed to do shadow work, or something that was just in the darkness. And if it was a wands card, it might be something that was just dawning, something that was just coming to light. And even though it might have been, the 10 of wands, it might have been something that was just coming aware of in that with that card, that energy I was just coming aware of. So it was really fun to work with this deck, and it's definitely one that's going to go on my reading shelf, and it's definitely one I'm going to work with in the future and pull out for different reasons. And I think that this one would be a really good deck to work with during the seasons when I'm doing seasonal work, when I'm doing seasons like with this season of Imulk that's coming up February 1st. It would be really fun to do a reading on that day and pull cards from this deck to see, because it's a day that's in between. It's a day that is between the winter solstice and between the spring equinox, and so it's this time of that in between. And this deck, I think, really captures that liminal time of in cycles, those liminal spaces. So it's definitely one that I'm going to work with, and hopefully as I work with it more, it's going to kind of break in a little bit, and it'll be a little bit flatter when I set it down on my table. So what I did for this, and I'll show this, I'll have this in the description in this video. This is a deck review sheet that I use, and I have two kinds of deck reviews. This is just a one-page deck review, and I also have a deck study guide. So I'll put links to both of those if you want to do this with this deck that you have, or if you want to do it with another deck that you have. But this here, it's places where I can just record my thoughts as I'm going along and working with this. And so I did the physical description. There's a place for a physical description. So as I open the box and as I start working with it, I can write down my initial impressions. Then as I keep working with it, I can and as I read the guidebook and find out themes and symbols. So that's another space. So I write about the themes, the symbols, the ways that's the same, that it's the different things that I'm familiar with, I'm not familiar with. And then I have a box for my impressions, places where I can write, did I like this? Did I not like this? What, and do I recommend it? How would I use this in the future? Would I recommend it? And so that is in the impressions box. And those are all the things I've kind of told you up to this point. So then I have a place that I do a one card draw. So when I'm kind of finished, when I get to this point, I'm getting ready my kind of study period is over. I like to do a one card draw as a message from this deck. So I drew the Lover's card, and and this deck does have, and it's in the introduction, some anthropomorphic features to it. So you see up in the tree, you see the angel here that's usually in the top of the tree in the Lover's card. It has a kind of a goat's head. And then you see down at the bottom, the two lovers down at the bottom. You see one person with some horns or some wings on her head. And then you see the other person that has the crow's or the raven's head here. So you see the two people. And there is a lot of that and a lot of balance here too. And I think that is important. There's a lot of, you will see in a lot of the cards, there's something that in the card that is light and something that is in the dark or more in the shadow, and which is beautiful and it's wonderful to work with. And so this card, when I got this card, I thought, do I choose this deck? Is this a deck that I'm going to choose? Because the Lovers is about choosing. And I said, yes, I like it despite the cardstock. And I really enjoyed the mix of the fantasy and the reality. It has beautiful collage, and definitely, like I said, has its own distinct take on the tarot and the Rider-Waite-Smith system. And it's got lots of flowers and pretty, just like the Lover's card that has all these beautiful roses blooming at the top. And it's just it's just a gorgeous deck. So I like it. And I think the Lover's card, that is telling me that I'm going to like working with this deck in the future. So that is my review of the Magical Hours Tarot. And I would love to hear what you think about it. Do you have this deck? Have you worked with it? Do you like these kinds of decks? What is it something that you would purchase for yourself and work with? Or if it's something that, because it does very much have its own style, and it might not, you might look at it and say, oh, that's just not my style. And I understand completely, because there's other decks that and I came across last year and did studies with that definitely weren't my style, and they were more difficult for me to work with. And so, it's important that you connect to the style. And I think the Lover's card is telling me that I've definitely connected with this deck, and it's one that I'm going to enjoy working with. So that is my deck for January, and I already have the videos out for the crystal, which I am working with, and the herb that I'm working with. And so the crystal that I'm working with this month is Tourmalinated quartz, and the herb is Milky Oats. And so I'll put some links for those so that you can see those and go back and see those as well. And so I am reading, the magical book I'm reading is called The Apothecary of Belonging. And so far, I'm really enjoying it. So next week, I'll have a book review for you next week. And I'm working on the next lessons from Lenormand class. And so hopefully I'll be getting that out soon as well. So thank you for joining me for this walkthrough and review of the Magical Hours Tarot, and I will see you again soon. Bye.